welcome to another episode of the Baptize Machine podcast. In this episode, it's just going to be me, Hans. Unfortunately, I will be out. I will be without my co-host, the Wall Street Bitch, tonight, due to him still having some lingering family in town from Thanksgiving. So he's being a good overall family member and just supporting them and being there for them. I am pretty excited about this episode, though. There's a good possibility we'll have this guy on again with the Wall Street Bitch, kind of like we did at Gloria. This podcast is about everything sexy. In our first episode, in our first kind of reboot series, we're doing health and alternative wellness practices, and then going into that was with the urine drinking and everything. Then we had Dr. Steve on to go along with that too, from Weird Medicine. And then we sort of transitioned into love and relationships with the twin flames and with Casper and his wife Cheryl. And now we are going to be transitioning more to, what makes people fall in love, and that's things people do. And the person we have on tonight is Mike Frick. He's mind, safety, and health trained. I'm going to say that later on in the show, and the acronym is MSHA. So when I say MSHA, I'm just referring to mind, safety, and health training. He's a trainer for surface and underground mines, along with a certification as a mine foreman. He's got some crazy stories of a person dying in a mine, close calls in several mines throughout Colorado, one about a uranium mine on the Navajo Nation, and he also spent over 30 years getting paid to explore mines and kind of check the safety conditions of them all. He also has 2 ghost stories he doesn't believe. And yeah, just to remind everyone, on this podcast, we discuss everything sexy, and, mining is sexy because you couldn't get things in mines without, what they mine. We need gas to go places, and then we're also going to do some listener questions today. I do want to thank our sponsors, Looney Raccoony, the clothing company you can find on Etsy, which we'll start linking in our bio. Also Pickle Walks for our intro and outro song. I also want to thank they're our new kind of recording platform. We're going to see how it goes with them, hoping to get higher quality video and audio clips for everyone out there. They have this cool soundboard, so if you are interested in using Riverside FM, we'll put a link with our kind of affiliated marketing description in there. Honestly, not sure how it's going to go for us, so we'll keep updating you on how we like Riverside FM. They do have these cool kind of transitions and everything, and side effects. All right, cool. So here comes Mike Frick. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. So yeah, I'll give you a little introduction. This is Mike Frick. He's a MSHA mine safety health training for both surface and underground mines throughout Colorado. He also has a certificate as a mine foreman. And with us today, I was hoping you could kind of just share a little bit about your background, what got you into mining, and then we mentioned some stories that you might share, and then we do have a few listener questions too. And Mike spent over 30 years getting paid to explore mines, which is sounds like a pretty cool, interesting, but I'm sure it was also a hard job. So we're just excited to hear from you, and we appreciate you coming on our podcast, The Baptize Machine. And I go by Hans on this show, and I do normally have a co-host, so maybe we could have you back sometime. We're hoping to do like a whole segment on miners and get a few other people on. So it'd be cool to have a bigger discussion eventually. But my co-host goes by the Wall Street Bitch, and unfortunately he still has some Thanksgiving family lingering around, so he couldn't get away yet this week. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
So yeah, Mike, if you want to just kind of introduce yourself, other than what I said, give a little background of maybe how you got into mining, And then I know
Okay.
you mentioned you had a story about someone dying in a mine. If you want to like open up with that, or also the ghost stories could be interesting too. Whatever you think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess where my mining started, I went to Rifle High School in Rifle, Colorado. And at the time when I was going to school there,
Mm-hmm.
the oil shale mining was big in Parachute, Colorado
Yeah.
area. And
Yeah, I heard it's like what is
so
that
one
called?
of
Like the Piance Valley outside of
yeah,
Paris. Yeah.
yeah, Piancetta, Rhone
Yeah,
Plateau.
someone told me there was like
Yeah,
more, natural gas or oil there than all of Saudi Arabia. Is that true or is it too hard to get to? What
yeah.
was the issue with
No,
that?
that's it. It's hard to, yeah, it's hard to get to. They say there's more oil in those mountains there in the Book Cliff Range than all the OPEC nations put together.
That's wild. What makes it hard to get
Yeah, it's
to?
crazy. Well, it's not really hard to get to, but it's hard to get it out of the rock. So it's an oil inside the rock, so it has to be heated up to get it out of the rock, basically.
Gotcha.
And so back then in the mid 1980s, the United States government kind of told all the big oil companies, "Hey, come out here and try to get this oil out of this rock and see what we can do," because there's a whole bunch of it here. So you had Amoco, Unical, Exxon, uh, uh, I can't remember all the players. Occidental
Yeah.
Oil was up
How
there.
how far do you think we are from that technology where they'll be able to?
Well, it's there. It's just the problem is it's a little harder to get out of the rock. It costs more to get it out of that rock.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I mean I've seen it. I mean I've been underground those. I worked underground there at the oil shale mines, and I mean it's thick. It's thick. It ain't like a coal seam. It's really thick.
Yeah, how would you like visually describe the difference for people just listening, you know?
So my first job, like I said, I went to high school there, and they offered mining classes through the
Mm-hmm.
college, so I took that. And then when I got out of high school, I had the opportunity to work up at the Exxon. I worked outside the mine for a little bit, but then I worked underground in a coal mine in Redstone, Colorado.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
in a coal mine, you're just about for a tall guy like me, I'm 6'1", so I sometimes you have to slouch
Hmm.
down to not
Yeah, I
hit the
get that.
roof.
I'm 6'4". That's why
Yeah,
honestly like I'm interested in mines, but personally I get like claustrophobic in them and everything.
yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
And then then I hurt my back there. I was on workers
Mm-hmm.
comp for a while, and then I got hired on to work underground at the oil shell mine at the Unical oil shell
Okay.
mine, and in the mine inside there, you had to like look up to see the ceiling. I mean, they had big massive haul trucks in there, massive equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and so later on in my career, actually, I ended up closing those for Unical, closing all the entries to that mine, which we had free reign of going inside that mine. We could drive our
Oh,
pickups
that's
in
pretty
there.
wild.
We was driving all around in there. Apparently there's like 40 miles of tunnel in
Wow.
there.
What was the
Uh,
reason they were closed down or that?
they just the government finally said, we're cutting off the funding, and you guys, I mean, they literally it was one
Oh,
day,
so they were government
and they
founded or funded
mhm,
mines, and then you had to close
yeah,
those down.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Exxon, as a matter of fact, Exxon built Battlement Mesa,
Yeah,
and it was a ranch basically, and they built the whole town. I mean, there's a grocery store and there's everything up there. And the day that they shut that off, I mean, they had to call in the Colorado National Guard because everybody was so mad. They laid off like
that's
3,000
crazy.
people. They were setting fires to the mobile homes that Exxon
Wow.
owned and in cars. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
right up
People
on
were
that hill
abandoning.
outside of Parachute. Yeah, all the
Yeah,
yeah.
you know what they say. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a story that is called like Project Plowshare, and during the 1950s they tried nuclear bombing in Rolison,
Yep, they sure
Colorado,
did.
just west of there. But
Yep.
then is
Yeah.
too the contaminants after nuking the ground, or is too contaminated to use anything after nuking it.
They even did it in the 70s when
Oh,
my
really?
dad had a ranch south of Silt.
Nuclear mining in
And
silt?
well, no, he was ranching there.
Okay.
They put over at Rulison, they set off one in the
Wow.
70s. They set one off up on Piance Creek. And I remember I talked to the rancher, there's just some kids that were my age at the
Mm-hmm.
time. and went to school in Meeker, and they was telling me about their uncle taking a dozer, and it was supposed to go off at a certain time that day, and it was like, I didn't get to go off. It hit 1 o'clock or whatever it was, and he took off in the dozer, and I guess it was a wave. The land just was like that. I guess it just like about it knocked him out of the seat of the dozer and
That's crazy. Wow.
cracked their foundation of their house, and yeah,
Wow. So he's
so
just like
yeah,
a bulldozer,
yeah,
like one of those big yellow things you see on
he
the
was,
side of the road or whatever.
yeah, he
Yeah.
was gonna go clean ditch, and
Wow.
yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, but they hit natural gas
Yeah.
there in the late or early 2000s, and they finally declared it clean, that the nuclear radiation was all right, so they was able to use that natural gas out of there.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, 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 and I can tell you all about fracking, the goods and the bads, and the
Yeah.
honest truth between the
Yeah.
two. I mean, both
What would
sides.
you say for fracking are the top three good things about fracking and then like the top three bad things? Because I think a lot of people know about it, but it's never like concise. You hear a lot
Well,
from one side or the
yeah,
other. So I don't know.
I mean, fracking really is just it opens up
Hmm.
everything, and it really does well. And they've also found out that the methane gas regenerates itself after about 50 years. You could pump a well for 20 years, 30 years, and kind of pump it dry, let's say,
Yeah.
of natural gas, and and then let it set, and it'll come
Wow.
back. And they've proven that on some old wells. I was involved with that, from some wells that were drilled back in the 1950s, and they came in and man, it was pumping again like
Hmm.
crazy. But now with fracking, I mean, the good thing is, yeah, you can bring more gas in. That's the cool
Yeah.
thing, and it brings a lot of work and all. But the bad thing is no matter, I don't care what the oil companies say, and I mean, I'm an oil
Yeah.
field guy type
That's how
guy,
you
but
make your
it does
money.
get away from them.
Sorry, would you?
There is no doubt that it gets away from them. I've been involved in
Yeah.
that where they put dye down in the well, and I'm not going to mention any gas
Hmm.
companies' names or
Yeah, that's
anything
fine.
like that, but they blamed me because I was doing oil field work. They blamed me for putting antifreeze in a pond that the rancher owned 3 miles
That's
away.
insane.
So I was to meet the rancher, the oil company, all these environmental people over there because they thought that I was the one that did it. I actually worked for a different company at the time. And I went over there and I'm like, wow, that pond is green, but there was Jeep roads going there. Why would we come over here and dump
Yeah.
antifreeze? It was their dye that they put in their well.
That's insane.
And then they turn around and I mean I've seen literally gasoline or benzene come directly out of the
Yeah,
hillside.
I remember a few years ago I saw a story about them dumping some crap into like just right into the Colorado River outside of
Yeah,
Rifle. It's like, all right, it's okay
yeah.
if we clean it up right, but yeah,
They do. I
yeah,
mean, they try to clean
yeah.
it. It does. They do a pretty good job of cleaning it. They do. I will
Yeah,
give
it's
them
just that I
that.
feel a few bad people give it a bad reputation in that way
Hmm.
when you see
Right.
that. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So I spent the time mining there in the oil shale and the coal mines. And then I did a little bit of side stuff up for West Elk by Paonia.
Hmm.
And then my whole career basically was reclamation and closing abandoned mines.
How many?
And I worked heavily in the oil field at the same time.
Yeah, how many? So are the when a mine gets abandoned, is it usually left open to the public, or is it like someone's called in right away and they assess that, or how does that work?
No, it depends. I mean, so there was the 1872 mining
Hmm.
law, and that basically gives us the right to go in and mine
Yeah.
on public
Hmm.
land. And so if you go mine on public land, you stake your claim, you do all your paperwork right, you go into mining, and let's say that you're finding gold and you're doing good at
Yeah.
it. You can apply for a patent on that mine, and you can basically buy that land at that mine that you have staked out for $2 an acre.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, Unical Oil did that, and everybody complained about it. And they said, okay, we'll just pay 5 times that amount. So they paid $10 an acre.
Have you ever like personally bought like found a mine on your own that you bought or?
Well, I went out and staked a claim on some
Oh, cool.
uranium. Yeah, back when uranium was getting hot and heavy back in the early
Yeah,
2000s.
that's awesome. It
Hmm.
might. I mean, nuclear
Yeah,
energy is coming back. I feel, but
yeah, that's what
yeah,
they say. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I live here in Arizona
Okay.
now. So all my electricity in my house right here comes from the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, I feel like we have the technology now to make it, to prevent any disasters,
Oh
really.
yeah.
And it's kind of ridiculous how afraid people are of nuclear energy, but yeah.
Well, I think what people don't remember or realize is that our aircraft carriers and our nuclear submarines are nuclear powered, and they don't have to refuel for about like 15 to 20
Yeah, and they're
years.
literally all over the world and nothing's gone
They could
wrong.
they could stay out in the
Yeah,
ocean for 20
yeah,
years and keep
that's
moving.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Is the your uranium mine you own? Is that the one on the Navajo Nation?
No, I give that up. I staked it back in like
Okay.
2005 or so. And then when things kind of fell apart and nobody's,
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like a gamble to go out and claim it and hopefully somebody would buy it
Yeah,
from
the
you, like a big
recession.
mining
Yeah.
company. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. But yeah, I did a lot of the mine closures in Colorado. I probably have done more than anybody.
Really?
The odd thing that I got, the weird way that I got into that is I'd hurt my back at the coal mine.
Okay. How'd you hurt your back?
And I needed a job. Yeah, I was just lifting
Oh,
too much,
yeah.
heavy stuff. They was work at that coal mine. As long if you could work 24 hours a day,
Yeah,
they'd
the
let you.
overworked. Yeah.
And I've literally worked a couple of 32-hour
Damn.
shifts.
That's a long
Yeah,
shift.
and overtime was
Yeah,
great. I was a
I'm
young
sure.
guy, and one day my back just fatigued and it went out. And I
Yeah.
was on workers' comp, and I seen an ad in the public notice like, "Hey, there's a pre-bid meeting for mine closures." I'm like, "What? That's kind of
Yeah.
weird." And my dad had a construction company back in the 70s in Denver. And so I went to this meeting in Newcastle, and you got to sign in with your company name. So I signed in my dad's company name, and this because he hadn't even
Yeah.
done any business then, and he was kind of halfway retired. And so I went to it. It was fun. It was kind of cool. I get to go look at some old abandoned mines, and when he come back, he lived in Arizona for a little bit then too, and then he came back and he says, "Hey man, I need to keep working a little bit. I retired too early." And I'm like, "Well, I hurt my back, and nobody wants to
Yeah.
hire me." So he showed me how to do construction, and so I said, "We should bid those abandoned mines." And he's like, "No man, I don't do that." And I'm like, "Well, someone's gonna bid it. I mean, might as well us be getting the money and it'd be
Mm-hmm.
fun too." And he said, "Doc," so I probably talked him into it, and away we went. And he was good at dirt work, and I was a welder, and sometimes you backfill them, sometimes you do welds and
Yeah.
mortar and stuff like that. It was a lot of labor
So
work.
what are you looking for when you close a mine other than I know there's like gas issues, but is there anything else? Is there like is it are you worried about things caving in or
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
And then
um,
do you go in with like oxygen or are you just
you don't really go
okay.
in unless you don't need to. I mean, you go in within about 10
Mhm.
feet. And but they always told me to stay
Yeah.
out. The state of Colorado was like, "Yeah, you can't go in there." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I can." So I'd go
Yeah.
in, and but I definitely looking for rock. I mean, I was trained after being a miner how to look at that, how the things might be
Mhm.
collapsing, and a slight move can make a lot of rock come down, and you got to be careful. So, I mean, back then we closed a lot of coal mines, and that was really what was dangerous back then was the coal mines because of the methane gas displacing the oxygen. And then so you'd take a monitor and make sure that you wasn't gonna like if you was gonna close it with welding, you wouldn't blow the thing up.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah,
and
I didn't
so
even think about that. Yeah.
yeah, so nowadays, I mean, most of the coal mines are closed in Colorado.
Yeah.
Um, they're doing the hard rock and uranium mines mostly. Still got to be careful. The uranium mines are oddly mined because they was following a wave. Sometimes or the way that uranium laid in kind of maybe went funky. It wasn't like a seam like a gold mine where they could just follow it in a straight
Oh,
line,
okay.
kind of
So you're
like.
kind of walking up and
Yeah,
down the whole time through the cave or
yeah,
mine shaft.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, the uranium mines they're kind of dangerous. I mean, first of all, you've got if a mine hasn't been worked for a long time or nobody's been in
Yeah.
it or there's no airflow through it, basically what happens is the oxygen and the carbon dioxide separate.
Okay.
And so, um, as you walk in the mine, the carbon dioxide will be up here, and the oxygen will be down below. And then as you're walking in, you'll just pass out. You'll just die right there. And that's what's happened to most people that's died in Colorado.
From the gas issue.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Damn. That's crazy.
but yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can tell you about the one person. What had happened
Yeah.
was they had closed. They started closing
The
mines in the
person who died in the
1980s.
mine. Okay.
Yeah, and so what had happened was is they put out a bid to do some maintenance on some mines that had been closed previously, and some people came in and reopened them. However,
Mm-hmm.
and there was one in the Book Cliffs outside of Palisade.
Okay. Yeah. Wine
And,
country.
yep, and it was right there at Mount
Mm-hmm.
Garfield. And I had it under contract, and we had closed about 100 mines that year, and the snow came in, and so usually when winter hit, we quit working.
Yeah.
Too hard to work. And so I took off, and that was back in the days when cell phones, you had bag phones. They weren't, like what we have
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And I bolted to Mexico because my dad and we prospect
Oh,
gold down
nice.
there.
How do you
And
find it in
so
river or where do you look for gold in
no, it
Mexico?
was old, old gold and old caliche down
Oh,
there.
cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I just we did that in middle of nowhere Mexico,
Awesome.
and it was kind of fun. And but yeah, I came back and I had a message on my cell phone or on my bag cell
Mm-hmm.
phone, and it was the state of Colorado going, "Hey, you need to call us like right now. There was a dude that died in that mine that you didn't
Oh
close."
my God.
I'm like, "Oh, geez."
So
So I call them, and sure, some college kids went up there messing around, and they went inside that mine, and they hit bad air, and one of them died.
oh man, where
And
was
yeah.
it near like Boulder or Colorado Springs?
No, they're right at
Oh yeah,
Palisade,
sorry, you
Grand
said that right
Junction, Fort
outside
Cliffs. Yeah,
Palisade. Yeah,
yep,
that's
yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that wasn't the first set of kids that was killed. There was another one there in Grand Junction in the I guess it was mid
Mm-hmm.
'80s that they kids went in there and
Yeah,
died.
so I guess it was long
So
overdue to
really,
be
the coal
closed.
mines.
Yeah.
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 So on average, so the reason Colorado was so bad, Colorado probably has more mine openings than just about any other state. It rivals like Arizona here too.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, when they started the program, I think they had 24,000 mine openings in Colorado,
That's wild.
and I've closed 4,000 of them uh, in Colorado. I lost count
That's
of 4,000.
amazing.
Let's put
That's
it
a
that way.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still involved. My stepson, he does
Uh-huh.
it, and you know, I helped develop helicopter and all that stuff. And I got a
That's
couple of
cool.
kids that I helped get in their own business. They're doing it now.
That's awesome. How long does it
Yeah.
take to close a mine?
It varies on how big the mine is and what kind of closure. I've done it to where my record is I closed 17 of them in one day, and that was just backfilling with a backhoe.
Okay, or they're all just kind of in one area.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's taken me 2 weeks to close one, like in Silverton, putting grading on and very remote, very labor intensive, and so
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. That's wild.
yeah. And I think you had asked me before we did this that one of the dangers of it and everything some of the dangers that I've seen. I had an excavator on one by Victor,
Okay.
Colorado, Cripple
Yep.
Creek, and so I had like it was putting a grading on it. And it was on the active mine side. It was at the Victor uh, coal mine or gold mine up there, and so it was the American Eagle mine, and there was this big old shaft, and the shafts up there can go 3,000 feet
Yeah.
deep. And so, anyways, I had an excavator in there, kind of moving stuff around, and then we put this big old grating on. It was massive. It was like 40 feet by
Mm-hmm.
40 feet. Pulled out of there, and then there was a fence around there to begin with. And I told the guys, I said, go down there and put that fence back up. And they come running after me the next morning. They're like, you need to come back over here and see what happened. So I went over there, right where my excavator was this massive hole, and it could have gobbled up my excavator, right where my excavator was
Wow.
sitting, 3,000 feet deep.
That's lucky.
It's
Yeah.
just weird.
That's a very close
Yeah,
call for sure. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I've had a lot of close calls. I can't even remember them all,
Yeah,
really.
I'm sure you did mention something. You said Joe John by Silverton. I don't know if we talked about that or not.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. So the Joe John mine by Silverton, um, it was collapsed. So you could just see the water coming out, and they wanted to reopen it and then get the acid mine water out of there because the water coming out of a lot of them abandoned mines got acid.
yeah.
It's
How do you
terrible.
mitigate that even?
Well, you try to treat it through settling
Yeah.
ponds, maybe a whole bunch of
Mm-hmm.
limestone. Lime kind of settles out the acid a little
Yeah,
bit.
I was up at an abandoned like mining area off of Independence Pass, kind of near like Twin Lakes and Aspen, and like the
Oh,
water is like still just orange, and is just like I don't want
yeah,
my dog drinking that. She's staying on a leash, you
right.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be good.
No.
But yeah, so we got it opened up and we decided. So they wanted to put a dam on the inside, just make a concrete dam with some piping in
Mm-hmm.
it, so they could control the water.
Okay.
So we took our monitor back, and I'm with the guy at the state of Colorado. We're back in there, and that monitor went off. We was in like 11% oxygen, which is not good
Yeah.
because normal air is about what 17.
Yeah.
Am I
I
right
th-
about that?
I could
17.
Google it really quick.
Yeah, but when you get down to 11, it's not good. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
19.5. Google says is normal.
19.5.
Yeah.
17 is, yeah, 17 is when it's time to get out.
Okay. There we go.
Anything below 17, you're in
Yeah.
trouble.
Okay.
We hit 11.
That's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, that mine, I remember oxygen deficiency. Another one was over at Creede. I think it's called the Amethyst Queen.
Okay. Yeah, that was in my notes.
And
Yeah.
it's a weird mine. It's a the Department of Defense back in the night, so they quit mining silver. That was really a silver mine. But there was also amethyst there, and it was mined way back in there and had a whole bunch of different levels and all this. And we was in town, and the locals were like, "Oh, you're closing that mine," and we're like, "Yeah, we're putting a door on." But the federal government wanted access to inside the mine, so we put
Mm-hmm.
the gate on. But they was like, "You need to go back in there and see if you can find the old hospital." And we're like, "What?" And so the Department of Defense actually built a hospital back in there, and in case there was nuclear and they could rush important people, I guess,
Yeah.
back inside this mine. And so we tried to go back in there, and this is way back when I first started, and I didn't have a monitor. And I told the guy, this old time miner from Creede, he's like, "Oh, just take a Bic lighter and light it.
Oh my
And
God.
if the flame goes way up and out, or if it goes way up, that means you're getting low on oxygen. But if it goes way up and out, that means it's
I'm
reaching
sure
for
the
oxygen.
Colorado
It's
state
trying to,
officials love that.
right?" So we go back in with our Bic lighters and our
Yeah.
little flashlights, and there's three of us. I mean, we walked, and we turn this way, turn that way, follow this track in this way. Oh, there's some cool stuff over there. Let's go look at that. And some of the stuff that was in there was cool. And I mean, we never did find the hospital in there, but we did run onto some other cool stuff. The old time bells and stuff for the man trips going up and down vertical. We was on false floors walking along. All of a sudden, we realize that we're walking on boards that there's nothing under there but air.
Wow.
And we just kept on lighting our lighters. And this one kid, he crawled up in this one area, and he goes, "Check out my lighter." And he's lighting it, and sure enough, it's like going up and out. I'm like, "Get out of there, man!"
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. And then, well, we got lost, and our batteries went on us. So
Oh,
we
so
would
you're
like
like your
walk.
headlamps or yeah.
Yeah, well, we just had regular
Oh, okay.
flashlights, and they
Is it just
died.
pitch black
And the
then when
walk,
you're in
and
there? Or yeah.
yeah, I mean, we could turn one on. It would last for a little bit, and then we got to an area. We're like, man, I don't. There's like, which way did we go? And the one guy was like, "I'm positive that we came from that direction." I'm like, "I don't think so." And he's like, "I know we did. I know we did." I'm like, "All right." And he was right. We went that way, but yeah, it took us a while to get
Wow,
back out of
that's
that mine.
crazy.
And we'd use the lighter too for
Yeah,
light
I'm sure. Yeah.
and our
Yeah.
safety device at the same time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought maybe you could go with. You said you had two ghost stories you don't believe. If you want to share one or both of those, and then we have a few
I got a
listener questions that came in on Twitter. That's what I was asking earlier if you had a Twitter. So.
okay. Well, the man, I can't remember the name of the
Uh
mine.
huh.
It's up at Silverton, and it was when I probably had about 10 employees. And so I went up there and we was going to put this massive culvert. It was an 8 foot diameter culvert, and
Mm-hmm.
we'd slip the culvert in and then
Okay.
we'd backfill around it. But so I'm up there by myself, and I've been running hard. I'm the one that brought the excavator up in the semi truck, and I started getting things ready, and I was tired that day, and the mine was kind of big on the inside. It was by the time you got in the past the entrance a ways, it was probably 20
Okay.
feet high and about a big bowl in there, like
Mm-hmm.
40 feet in diameter. And I'm sitting there, and I'm tired, and I seen a flash of what looked like a woman in like a 1980 or 1880s dress, and like the
Yeah,
big
yeah, like
plume
a ball
dress.
dress or something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they
Was
had the
she in
hoops
like
in them.
color? Was she like a
No,
certain color?
no, no.
Just
It was
white.
just white, kind of
Hmm.
whitish, yeah. And I'm like, wow. And it was a split
Yeah.
second. I'm talking split
Blink of an
second. I'm like,
eye.
why do I even think? I'm thinking to myself, why did I think that? Why did that come
Mm-hmm.
to my mind like that? And I'm just kind of weird, I'm like, oh well, whatever. It's just something I thought about or something, whatever. So I had this. There was a girl that I had hired on, and
So this was
she's a
after you
single
were
person,
in the mine
and
in Silverton, where you saw
yeah,
the split
about a week,
second might have been a
yeah,
ghost flash of woman in a big ball white dress.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, and I forgot about it. And a week
Mm-hmm.
later, she's up there working, and she calls me, and she came back to Grand Junction because that's
Okay.
where our headquarters were. She goes, "Hey man, I need to talk to you," and I'm like, "Well, okay, whatever. Employees have problems. Something maybe another
Yeah.
employee,
Yeah. I'm sure
I
it's
don't
a
know what
male
was going on."
dominant industry.
And she goes, do you believe in ghosts?" And I'm like, no. She goes, I never told anybody this story. And she comes and she goes, "I was in that mine today, and I seen a lady with a big dress from like the 1880s." She
Oh
described it
man, that's
exactly.
crazy.
And she goes, "It was like a split second." She goes, "But I seen it. I
And you
know I
never
seen it."
told
And
her
I'm like,
about
"Oh
it?
man, the hair stood up on my."
Uh,
I told her about again
but
what I
but
seen.
before did you
And
tell
I'm
her
like,
about what you saw? No. Okay. That's
I tell
crazy.
nobody,
Wow.
nobody. And when
Yeah.
she came to me like that, I was like, whoa, that just like, I mean, I still like think
Mhm.
about it and get a
Yeah, that's
shiver up
good.
my back because it was
Mhm.
something that happened. There was no way that nobody knew that. Um, my other one that I ran into that was strange is we was working in a place called Bull Canyon, and it's in West Montrose County, closing abandoned mines. And there is a story about a guy named
Okay.
Indian Henry, and he was an orphaned Ute Indian boy when the white man came
Mhm.
through in the, I
Yeah.
guess it was the 1880s there.
Maybe
I can't remember
maybe
the years,
probably
but anyways, he was,
1840s to 1880s. Yeah. That sounds right.
yeah, he was picked up by the white man and raised as a white
Mhm.
person, I guess you might say. And he was good. So back in those days, they weren't after uranium; they was after
What?
vanadium,
Oh,
or
what is
I'm
that?
sorry, radium.
Oh,
Radium
okay.
glows in the dark, and so back then they were all about getting
Mhm.
radium. And today it still holds a record as is the highest price paid per ounce for a mineral, which was $1 million.
Wow.
So
That's
that holds a
crazy.
record still today. And I guess the uranium was bigger than gold back in the day in that area. But so Indian Henry, he was good about finding these radium mines and claiming them, and then he'd sell his claims to these other miners. Well, one day long story short, the other miners were like, "Where's he hiding his money? Let's go get it. Let's go get." So he had built this cabin out of this thick rock. It's crazy. It's still down
Yeah.
there today. You can go see it. And anyways, they ended up. roughing him up a little bit too much. And by the time the sheriff got there to see what was going on 2 days later, because he had to ride out of
Uh huh.
Montrose on horseback, the Indian Henry was on his deathbed, and they were still trying to get it out of him where his money was, where he's hiding it. And he said it's a day's ride from here. And he ended up
Oh
dying. They
no
buried him
way.
down there. There's actually a
And you can still
gravestone with him
visit
down
that
there.
mine, or
And
okay?
I go back down there a lot.
Could
I've worked a
like
lot down in there. Yeah,
could the
it's Bull
public visit
Canyon.
it?
Hmm.
Oh, cool,
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, it's
cool.
on
Okay,
BLM land. Bull Canyon. Yeah, it's pretty
cool.
cool down there. It's really. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah,
The
I want to
cabin's
check that
really
out
cool.
someday.
Yeah, it's a ride down there. You should take a four wheeler. I mean, some days the county will
Uh
open
huh.
up the road, but it's kind of like the very last thing that they'll do. And some days rocks fall on the road, so you can only get by on a four wheeler or
Okay,
even a
gotcha.
motorcycle. But yeah, you can see that. But so, anyways, we're working up on top, and I had to go in. We were working in December there, and I had to get some stuff done. The guys all came home, and I was going in kind of late in the evening, and I ended up driving. I mean, this is 25 miles off of pavement, and I get up there, and I'm like, and I had this pickup that had like heated seats, and it's 9 degrees outside, and so I'm thinking
Yeah,
I'm just gonna sleep in my pickup
yeah,
tonight. I
that's what
just
I
leave
would
it
do.
run. And so I kick back, and I'm just like leaning back in my seat. I'm literally there's nobody. We never
Okay.
seen anybody up there. And I kid you not, I hear three knocks on my window, and it was knuckles hitting my window. And I thought, oh, those guys are trying to scare me. So I get my lights turned on. I grab my flashlight. I'm like looking out the window, and I can't see anybody. I'm in an area, and there was no explanation for that. And but that's the story is that Indian Henry messes with people up there. And I was literally above his cabin on the cliff
That's
above him.
wild, Mike. Yeah,
So
that's pretty
I don't know what
crazy.
happened that night.
Yeah,
It was such a
just a
rap on
hard
that
knock.
window that nothing else could have made that
Whew.
sound. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was actually that's a good transition actually, because one of our me and my co-host, we actually grew up in New Jersey, but I've lived in Colorado the past decade or so. And
Mhm.
we were wondering, there's like stories of, you know, little people with like who are albinos that like live in the woods and are cannibals by our town in New Jersey. And so I was wondering if there's like any
Oh,
like
really?
famous like, you know, mine myths about like people living in the mines who are like cannibals or demons or something like that. Yeah, if there's like a store pop, you
Well,
know,
yeah,
myth like that. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. They're
Okay.
called Tommy
Yeah, could you
knockers.
explain what a Tommy knocker
Very
is?
well known. So Tommy knockers are there's a couple of different ways to explain it. Probably one is maybe dead
Okay.
miners working in the old mine, and like you say, maybe it's
Mhm.
other something, but there was miners throughout the years like, oh, I put that hammer down right over here and it's gone and it's over there and there's no way nobody was here that took that hammer and I
Okay.
didn't take it. And there's stories like that you hear and they call it Tommy knockers. Or you can hear
Okay.
things in the mine that just isn't like something you would hear in a mine
Mhm.
and different things that happen inside the mine oh, it's just
Wow.
Tommy knockers. And that's how
Okay.
they got their name, yeah. And if you go to Idaho
Yeah, they
Springs,
have the brewery
Colorado,
there.
there's yeah, there's a famous pizza place
Uh-huh.
called Bojo's, and right next to Bojo's is Tommy Knockers, and it's a distillery. Well, it's not a distillery; it's a brewery. And yeah, they got. You can read a little bit
Okay.
about the Tommy Knockers
Cool.
there.
That's good to know.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's see. Our next question is, have you ever had sex in a mine? Oh,
Nope.
okay. There we go. Sorry, these are just all from Twitter. We
Thought
have
about
a
it.
diverse audience. So I'm just going through.
I will tell you one time, I had an employee that he was like running around in the old mine building. He's like,
Oh,
"Man, this makes me horny." I'm like, "Really? I'm getting
okay. It's interesting fetish there. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah."
Uh, um. Oh, what? So you said probably coal mine was the most popular kind of mine you worked in or worked around.
I worked in coal mines. I worked around them
Hmm.
all. I mean, really. But coal mines, I've actually worked inside the coal mine. I've worked on the surface coal
Okay.
mines too.
And
Yeah,
then someone said, I don't know quite what this question means, but they said, do people escape and live in the mine? So maybe they mean like escape from prison and then try to hide out in mines, or
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, there's heck, I had a guy working for me. He when he started working for me, he goes, "Yeah, my brother lives in a mine over at Fort Collins. He's going to school at CSU, and he lives
Oh,
in an
so do
old
they
mine
like set up like a
with
bed and
his girlfriend."
like live in it like portable stoves and stuff? Oh,
I've
really?
seen it.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. In Utah, it's really bad over there. They've got, when I say bad, they've got meth
Oh,
labs
really? Yeah,
inside
because
of
there's
them.
some actually really cool houses
Yeah,
in Utah where they're like built into the side of the rock. So I feel like it's stable. That it's like a
yeah,
more stable rock there, maybe. But yeah.
yeah,
Um.
yeah. There is that happens a lot. I mean, people are homeless. If I was
Yeah.
homeless, that's where I'd
It's
go.
yeah. It's warm. It's
It's
safe. It's
warm
dry.
in the
Yeah.
wintertime. It's cool in the summer. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it. As far as our listener questions go, we appreciate you coming on and everything. Unless you have any last words or
Yeah.
no, anything for us, and then
The only thing I think is if people's going to go in a bad mind, they just need to be aware of
yeah,
the
that's a
dangers.
good thing.
And they should go in with somebody that has experience because it
Yeah.
can get kind of
Don't go
weird
in a
down
mine
there in
if
the
you don't know
mines.
what you're doing. Yeah. All
Right.
right. Well, awesome, Mike. I'll send you all this over in the next day or two when we get it up. And yeah,
Okay.
thanks for coming on. We appreciate you. All right. Have a good
All right.
night.
You bet. Thank you.
See ya. Thank you, Mike Frick, for coming on the Baptize Machine podcast. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, Looney Raccoony, Pickle Walks, and Riverside, and I will put links to all of those in the bio. Our next episode, we will be featuring someone who channels higher dimensional beings such as Sasquatch, and who knows what else. We love you. We are the Baptize Machine. Wall Street Bitch will be back on the next episode. We're going to do a song called Ohio by
Oh, and I sing to the ones within me, and I sing to the ones without. As my river flows down the train tracks, all I know is you want the spout, the only spout.
I just really want to go to Ohio. It's beautiful. There's cows, and I really feel